Welcome to Idea Talks, a Unite podcast focusing on topics related to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Here we discuss how we can create better work and study environments for everyone at our technical universities. Today we are sitting together here in the recording studio at Graz University of Technology to discuss the important topic of digital accessibility as a key component of digital equity. My name is Mittischek from the Gender, Diversity and Equity Unit at Tu Graz, and I have the pleasure of hosting this podcast today. I'm joined by Sarah Edelsbrunner, Jasmin and Bernhard Kagl. So at the beginning, to kick things off, Bernhard, could you briefly introduce yourself and share how you became involved with the topic of digital accessibility at universities?
Yeah, for sure. I am developer and digital accessibility expert at the organizational unit Educational Technology at Graz University of Technology, and I get involved to this topic because I am nearly blind and I have many difficulties during my study of software engineering in the university context.
Mm-hmm. And Bernhard, as an expert in digital accessibility and the main point of contact at Tu Graz, could you explain what digital accessibility actually is?
Digital accessibility, the term accessibility is defined as the ability to access, especially for persons with disabilities. Persons with disabilities are those who have impairments, for example, in vision, motor, hearing, or cognitive.
Mm-hmm. And why is the topic of digital accessibility important, especially in the university context?
This topic is important because of legal restrictions. One very important legal restriction, for example, is the European standard, the European norm 301549, which guarantees that documents, products and services should be accessible for everyone, especially for persons with disabilities.
And could you share a practical example of how digital accessibility has been successfully improved in teaching or in administrative systems at universities?
Yeah, in our organizational unit, we provide the central communication media between students and teachers, which is called the Teach Center. This is a Moodle platform, and for this platform I developed a theme that improves the coloring, the font size, the styling, and the experience for persons with disabilities. They are able to switch that theme on in their personal profile.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sarah, could you briefly introduce yourself and share how you became involved with the topic of digital accessibility at universities?
Of course. Hi, my name is Sarah Edelsbrunner, and I work at the organizational unit called Educational Technology here at Tu Graz. And I'm an instructional designer. This means that we work in digital education and we create educational materials and work with teachers. And I've become involved in digital accessibility because we want to make these educational materials available for everyone. And we want to make sure that our content is usable by everyone. So I started taking courses on digital accessibility. I started reading up on the topic. And then I was also asked to give a workshop as part of the Unite dialogue here at Graz.
Mm-hmm. So, you held a workshop on digital accessibility in documents. What is this topic about?
Well, digital accessibility in documents specifically means that we create documents that are accessible and usable by as many people as possible. Of course, this often means focusing on people with disabilities or people who use assistive technology. But in general, accessible documents are usually better for everyone. So accessibility in documents, to give a more concrete example, concerns the content of the document and the design of the document. When we speak about the content, it means, for example, that the content is understandable, the content is clearly structured, and on the design side, it's important to consider factors such as the colors that we're using in a document, for example, to avoid red, green. Also organizing the document so that it's easily readable, and tagging it in the correct way so that, for example, screen readers can read the document.
And why is this important for everyone at universities?
It's important to have accessible documents for everyone because they are not only usable for students with disabilities, they improve the experience for everyone. For example, if we think of a document that is well structured, that uses headings, that uses clear language, then all the students will be able to work better with this document compared to a document that is not structured or that is not very clearly readable or doesn't have high quality graphics in it. And it's also important to use accessible documents even if you're not working directly with students, because we shouldn't forget that we also have staff at universities with disabilities. And if we use accessible documents in the first place, then it doesn't matter who we are dealing with, and we can be sure that everyone will be able to read our documents.
And what are the most common misunderstandings or challenges participants bring with them at the beginning, for example, of workshops?
A lot of people think that creating accessible documents is a lot of extra work. So as a consequence, people usually think, okay, I won't make my documents accessible unless I have a student that asks for it, and then I will do the work. But the truth is, if you make an accessible document and if you think of accessibility in the first place, then it's often a lot less work than having an unstructured or not accessible document and trying to retrofit it to be accessible.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us a specific example of how digital accessibility has been implemented in practice?
Yes, now if we talk about documents, we do have a website for digital education that's called Telucation. And on this website, of course, we try to make the website as accessible as possible. But on the website, we also offer the articles as a PDF, which has a nice visual layout for people who like to have a nice looking document. But then we also have an accessible Word version of the document, so a Word document that is for people that have visual impairments, but it's also for people who want to reuse the document because this way it's easier to extract the text, and for anyone who just likes to have the information clearly laid out without all the layout and the graphics.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Jasmin, could you briefly introduce yourself and share how you became involved with the topic of digital accessibility at universities?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jasmin. I work in the International Office Welcome Center at Tu Graz, and I'm also in Community 3 of Unite. And I actually only became involved with the topic of digital accessibility through the workshop that Sarah was offering some last year at Tu Graz during the Unite dialogue. And before that, I actually never had any experience with the topic whatsoever.
And so, as a participant, what were the key learnings for you?
So first of all, I have to say that the workshop was really interesting. It was really interactive. We got the chance to have a look at different documents and presentations that Sarah prepared. And we had a look at the documents from the perspective of different personas, for instance, also of somebody who's, for instance, visually impaired. And then we had to make sure that we upgrade or improve the documents for these people. And it was really interesting to see that there are actually a lot of easy strategies that you can take to make documents and presentations easily accessible. So you can always make it 100% perfect, but there are also some easy steps that you can take to make documents more readable and more accessible.
And how has this changed or improved your daily work?
So we in the Welcome Center make a lot of presentations and documents for the international groups, so for international students and staff. And we now make sure to have, for instance, presentations more readable and accessible. We make sure that the content is presented in a clear and readable way so that the content is, for instance, on presentation slides, not too small, there's not too much information on it, and also that the contrast is fine. And we have also updated an information sheet on accommodation options in Graz. And we have added pictograms there, which we did not have before. And we made sure that there's actually also a machine-readable description of the pictogram in the background. So that's also something new that we haven't had an idea that it's needed or used before.
Mm-hmm. And is it hard to improve something like that, or is it easy? Makes it a lot of work? What would you say?
In my opinion, it's not that hard. So I thought it's more complicated, but after the workshop, we really got a lot of tips and we were made aware that it's actually quite easy. So I would say there are a lot of really easy steps that you can take, which make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So, thank you for sharing your expertise and providing such fascinating insights into a topic where we all still have much to learn in order to make our environment more inclusive. And to do that, what final message would you like to leave with your listeners? What's your closing statement or your key takeaways? Bernhard, do you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. My final message would be, or the major takeaway would be, to keep accessibility in mind and accessibility first on designing products, services, and so on.
Thanks, Bernhard. And Sarah, what's your key takeaway?
I would like to tell listeners that making your documents accessible isn't rocket science, and that it's much better to do it right when you're creating a document instead of going back and adding accessibility features later on.
Mm-hmm. And Jasmin, what final message would you like to leave with our listeners?
I would really say that it's a lot easier than you might think to make documents and presentations, for instance, more readable and more accessible. So I would encourage everybody to have a look at the materials that are available and just, have a go.
Thank you. So thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge with us. And a big thanks also to our listeners. We're so happy that you want to learn more about inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. The next episode of the Idea Talks will focus on the EDAM project. And until next time, please consider what good ideas you got from this discussion. Together, we can make a change.